This is not COVID relief. It's a $2 trillion blue state boondoggle and a Trojan horse for their reckless partisan policies.
That was Congressman Jodey Arrington on the House floor earlier today as the House once again passed the $1.9 trillion, well, I don't even want to use their terms. They call it a relief package. It is a bailout. As he said, a boondoggle. What else did he say? Well, he joins us now to talk about it. Congressman, welcome back to the program.
Tony, great to be with you as always.
You were pulling punches. When you look at how this breaks down, less than 9% of this $1.9 trillion actually goes to getting vaccines or shots into people's arms for the coronavirus. $350 million going to blue states to bail them out and reward them for supporting the Democratic Party. I mean, there's nothing good about this legislation.
No, and listen, 5 times in the past year for $4 trillion worth, Republicans and Democrats worked together to meet the needs, to get families on their feet, move the country forward in recovery, right? So this is what we did under President Trump and Republican leadership, and now they've completely abandoned that. There's $1 trillion still unspent, and they're just ramming and jamming a partisan bill that the shame of it is they're wrapping the flag of COVID relief, but it's anything but. It's bailouts for schools that didn't open, bailouts for union pensions with no reforms, no fixes, and you listed others. The parade of horribles is too long, but it really is shameful. I don't use that word often, but it is because it's false advertising, and they're playing and preying on the emotions of the American people who are very generous and compassionate.
Right, and I would also say that they're giving American people some hush money by putting the checks in there and through that allowed to do all this other stuff. For instance, one of the things that I know bothers you, because it bothers almost every member of the Republican caucus, and that is the Hyde language is gone. For the first time in 44 years, we are now funding abortion with taxpayer money.
I mean, it is immoral to not have the guardrails, and it's un-American to not have those safeguards for preventing taxpayer dollars to go to abortion, because the vast majority of American people don't want that to happen, and that's why we have the Hyde Amendment in every major piece of legislation. So, yes, that's another abomination in there. There are no guardrails to preventing taxpayer monies to go to illegal immigrants. Again, the list is long. We're paying people to stay on unemployment rather than go to work. We offered up simple amendments, Tony. I'm on Ways and Means Committee. I had to go through markup. And we said, look, if you haven't had economic harm from COVID, let's just all agree you shouldn't get cash assistance from the taxpayers. Dismissed out of hand. How about the amendment that said you can't pay people more to be on unemployment than they made at their previous job, or they won't go back to work? We can't recover. Dismissed out of hand. I mean, 300 amendments, all rejected. Yeah,
well, it's on its way to the president. They own it now, and we'll see what the effects of this are. Let's transition, Congressman Arrington, to the southern border. You represent portions of Texas. This is an issue for Texas, Arizona, California. What's going on the border?
Well, President Biden, through his actions, policies have consequences. And he's completely repealed funding for the border wall. He's repealed prohibitions on catch and release, accountability for sanctuary cities. I mean, completely unraveled the restrictions that dropped border crossings, illegal border crossings, 75% under the Trump administration. Now, the border is completely on fire. They won't use the word crisis, but I promise you, on so many levels, public health. I mean, there are mandates and restrictions that the Biden administration puts on the American people, but it's free for all for illegals crossing the border. And look, it's a humanitarian issue too. We care about these families. They are preyed upon. The drug cartels, they're lining their pockets and using these people and abusing them. And we're the Biden administration's aiding and abetting that with these reckless immigration policies.
Congressman Arrington, let me ask you this question, because shortly after the Biden administration came in, if you're an American citizen traveling back into the country, you have to have a COVID-19 test even to get into the country. Are those coming across the border illegally being required to be tested for the COVID?
No, they're not. In fact, there's a hue and cry from Democrats, including Henry Cuellar from Laredo, Texas, on the border, and Democrat leaders, local elected officials like the mayor of McAllen and the Rio Grande area. They're having to do that themselves. We're spending almost $1 billion in Texas to try to test these folks if we can get them in an organized way to comply. It's just all advisory because they know that there'll be no accountability. In fact, they will be rewarded because the Biden immigration plan that was just introduced has a pathway to citizenship. So you can break the laws, you can cut in line, and you'll get rewarded.
Amazing. What a difference an election makes. Congressman Jodey Arrington, thanks so much for joining us today.